Gear up for Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. It's your final word on sports all across the state. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now here are your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
You know, when I finally made the decision and released it, you know, that's really when I made my final decision. You know, I didn't really confirm it any time prior to when I released it. You know, it's not like I was holding it a secret or anything like that.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, Tuesday edition. Good to have you with us. Phil Kornbluth on the road, undisclosed location, secret assignment. Kevin McCrary back in his empty chair for the first time in a few days. Professor Tom Hayes once again as well back in the studio with Jared Rogers Martin. Big show for you tonight. Big goings on. 800-956-7266 is our number. USC pitching coach Jerry Myers coming up at the bottom of this hour to talk about the draft activity with the Gamecocks, which started last night. Well, a credit to USC and Jerry Myers, the pitching coach, as he had two of his pitchers taken in the first two rounds. And today, Tyler Johnson joined Clark Schmidt and Will Crow going in the fifth round. We'll go over everything for you in just a minute. So three of his stud pitchers being taken in the first five rounds. And we'll also, of course, check with him on what's happening with the program while he is the interim head coach and things of that nature. Nothing new to report that we know about regarding the search for a new head coach at South Carolina. Keep in mind that Ray Tanner is a member of the NCAA Baseball Selection Committee, and as such, I believe he has to be out in Omaha some during the College World Series. So not sure how that's going to impact his search. It might help it. It might delay it. My theory is, guys, you know, my theories are usually pretty much spot on. My theory is if there's not a new named by the weekend, then he's waiting to talk to some people who are still involved in college baseball out in Omaha. Just my theory.
Yeah. I mean, it's a theory. I don't know that it would necessarily be an ironclad theory because Ray Tanner has been pretty deliberate in every major decision that he's had to make, from hiring a football coach when South Carolina had a head start on everybody. South Carolina was the first job to really open up when Steve Spurrier left in the middle of the season, and he still filled his job in that vacancy after other schools that had job openings after South Carolina. So just because he doesn't make a hire by the end of this week does not mean necessarily that he's waiting on somebody in Omaha. He could still be talking to people that aren't in Omaha, maybe people that just were eliminated in the past day or so, if you will. I mean, the Florida Wake Forest Super Regional just wrapped up yesterday. So he might still be talking to people through the weekend. You mentioned his travel plans and other obligations that he might be dealing with the Board of Trustees and other things. So, that's a theory and a hypothesis, but I do think that it wouldn't necessarily mean that if there's not a hire made on Friday, it's going to be somebody that's coaching in Omaha right now.
Well, did you just use theory and hypothesis in the same sentence?
Yes. Yes, he did. I do think there is something to be said about do you win a press conference or are you thinking for the long run? Suppose Ray figures out, hold it, wait a minute, I can get an established coach in here right now. And then suddenly another side of him says, you know, if I make the right hire and this guy is around 38 or 40, I can sit back and maybe AD for as long as I want to and don't have to worry about a baseball coach for over a decade. Who knows? I don't know. But it's interesting that his tentacles stretch across college baseball, but I do think he's going to make a deliberate decision, unlike some athletic directors who want to win the press conference and just get it over with and hire the first boat that floats by. That's not Ray Tanner.
Yeah, winning the press conference. I really hate that phrase. I think that is I think that does you more harm than good in the big picture. Something else I was thinking about too. Yeah. I mean, Ray is he's got his own coaching tree with some extended roots. Many of the names being bandied about out there are Jack Leggett's proteges, and I'm just wondering why he wouldn't, not to take anything away from Jack or the Clemson connection, how would that fly with people? Maybe because they're so far removed from Clemson and Jack's gone too, it wouldn't bother anybody. But why wouldn't Ray look even more closely at his own coaching tree, guys in his own backyard that he has worked with over the years? We've talked about Mark Calvey, for example, at South Alabama, who obviously did a terrific job coaching under Tanner and running his own program at South Alabama. Jim Tillman, who was responsible for recruiting most of the talent that went to the World Series and then won the national championships in those that second run to the World Series, who went to Liberty and averaged about 37 wins per season. I wonder why we're not hearing more about people that he himself developed as coaches.
Well, we're not hearing a lot about anything from him. He keeps things close to the vest. I was told by somebody over the weekend, inside baseball with knowledge that has talked to Calvey, that he's pretty content where he is. He turned down the Tennessee job. He could have had that if he wanted it. He was interested in the Alabama job, and had they come after him hard, they might have been able to make a run at him. But he and his family are very comfortable in the state of Alabama. And I was also told he and his family remember well their experience in Columbia. And it wasn't a pleasant one for him. And he has not forgotten that at all.
Are Gamecock baseball fans that mean to people?
Well, they were pretty mean to him. I mean, Mark Calvey and Chad Holbrook at the end, those guys, they took a beating. Now, Gamecock fans are very defensive about this, and it's not all of them, but I think people that are around, and I've talked to some regular, I would just consider them run-of-the-mill fans. I think most fans are fine, but there were vocal fans that treated Mark Calvey very, very poorly. And those are the kind of things that you don't forget as a coach, especially if you feel like it was unfair. And Mark Calvey, the year that South Carolina won the College World Series, there were fans that very season screaming at Mark Calvey that he should be fired, and calling radio shows, including ours, saying that Mark Calvey should be fired. He doesn't forget that sort of thing. His wife sitting in the stands doesn't forget that sort of thing. And, so I don't think he would be falling all over himself to come back to Columbia, knowing what kind of pressure you are under at South Carolina, and you can embrace that or not. But seeing what happens, and people are going to look at what Chad Holbrook did and say, wow, this guy made 2 super regionals and 3 regionals, hosted a couple of regionals, won the SEC East last year, and he got fired. So, there's nobody that's going to be afraid of that. Either embrace that or you don't. But these people that don't think there's coaches out there with good jobs that are making good money going, well, why would I leave $1 million job that I have now and go into that?
All right. Well, some national pundits, I've read some articles talking about that. I will say this, though, Corin. It'll be interesting to see if he goes away, as you said, from his tree, because let's face it, even though, you look back at it, Chad Holbrook didn't start at South Carolina. That was one of his guys, or perceived to be his guy. So does he want to bring back one of his guys to be exposed to that again if things go wrong? Well, see, there's Ray Hyde, another one of his guys, and it's not working out. Or does he want to go get some thoughts from somebody else's tree and see if that works out? It'd be interesting to see his thought processes when he discusses who he eventually hires.
Well, there's certainly a comfort level in bringing in somebody that you are familiar with and you have worked with and who helped you get to where you are. Without the sweat and toil of Mark Calvey and Jim Tillman in particular, and then later Chad Holbrook and Sammy Esposito, Ray Tanner wouldn't be sitting there as the athletic director with 2 national championship rings to play with and look at. Hey, coming up after the break, Clark Schmidt is going to join us. USC pitcher taking 16th by you-know-who, the Yankees. He's coming up, and Jerry Myers later. We'll be back. Welcome back into Sports Talk, everybody. Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, the professor, Tom Hayes with you on a gorgeous Tuesday afternoon. Where I am, I'm sure it's gorgeous wherever you are. Let me catch you up to date on the baseball. Then we're going to hear from Clark Schmidt, who was the first player from the state taken, 16th round by the Yankees.
16th overall, first round. Come on, Corn.
That's what I said. First round, 16th.
You said 16th round. They're not even to the 16th round. This is what we're going to do.
Did I not say first round, 16th pick?
No, you said 16th round.
I'm sorry. First round, 16th pick.
Thank you.
Stop interrupting. U.S.
Did we really lose him? Oh, great. Cord, you didn't have to hang up. I was just teasing you. He did say 16th round for the record. Did we lose Corn? Did his line drop? Okay, well, let's get Corn back up because we will have Clark, who I know Corn's very excited to talk to because Corn being the diehard Yankee fan that he is.
Sam Keaton, where'd you lose me?
We lost you about 30 seconds ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is not going well.
No.
Will Crow, USC right-hander, National second-round 65th pick. Will Gaddis, right-hander, Furman, Rockies, third-round 86th pick. Charlie Barnes, left-hander, Clemson, Twins, fourth-round 106. Sam Keating, Clemson signee, right-hander, Padres, fourth-round 108. USC right-hander, Tyler Johnson, White Sox, fifth-round 147. Clemson outfielder, Chase Pender, Cardinals, seventh-round 214. USC Aiken right-hander Connor Riley, Angels, eighth-round 235. Billy Cook, outfielder Coastal Carolina, Mariners, eighth-round 243. And right-hander Alex Cunningham of Coastal, Padres, ninth-round 258. And they're in the 10th round right now. Pick 299 is coming up. And with that, not the smoothest transition in the world, we welcome Clark Schmidt from USC, first round, 16th pick. By the grace of God, he's going to be a New York Yankee. Clark, welcome in. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How y'all?
Man, we're doing great. Congratulations to you. And just tell us about last night, what your thoughts were when you got the call, you heard your name, and you realized that you're a first rounder and you're going to New York.
Well, I mean, obviously the initial reactions and the emotions it's all a whirlwind, and everything is it's just a blessing. And when you first hear your name, it's really special, and it's kind of like a weight lifted off your shoulders when you finally hear your name go across. And to be selected by the Yankees is such a blessing, and I'm thankful for the opportunity. And I mean, it's very happy times in the Schmidt household right now. So I'm very lucky.
Absolutely. Who did you talk to from the Yankees when they made the call to you, and what was the message from them to you?
I talked to the area scout from South Carolina. He just said congratulations and blah blah blah, and just talked about how much they liked me and liked my stuff, and how much they think, or how highly they think of me. And then I talked very very briefly with the scouting director and got to meet him a little bit and just talk with him on the phone for a little bit. But those are the only two I talked to so far.
All right. Now, they do realize that it was the Mets doctor who did your surgery, so do they trust his work?
Yes, sir. I guess they trusted enough, I guess.
I imagine. So what did they say about your rehab, and how do they become involved with that?
Well, we really haven't even, gotten to discussions about that yet. Obviously, that's kind of the next step in this process, is to talk about what's going to go on with the rehab and how we're going to handle that. So that's what's going to go on next. I mean, we haven't even, like I said, we're still kind of in the moot stage where, everyone, they're still drafting kids right now, so they're kind of dealing with that. And like I said, from my side of the things, we don't know what's the next step and when we got to negotiate all the details. So we're still celebrating and enjoying it as we can, and then we'll move on to the next step.
Yeah, gotcha. I guess you got to like, too, when you look at the first round and maybe you're watching the MLB tracker and they've got the slot money next to your name. I mean, that's got to be, when you close your eyes at night and you think about that's got to be kind of a warm feeling.
Yes, sir. It's all a blessing. Like I said, God's blessed me so much. This is just another blessing, and for the Yankees to give me this opportunity is special, and especially to be, whenever you're whenever they're a small young baseball player, this is one of the things they always dreamt about, is to be a first round pick, and to be a first round pick to the Yankees, it's special.
Yeah. Have you talked to Jordan Montgomery since he was brought up to the big league club about his experience up there so far?
Yeah, we've messaged a few times. I reached out to him after a few of his starts, and he got back to me, and we just been talking about how much he enjoys it. We haven't got to talk a ton in depth, but he messaged me last night and just talked about, gave me congratulations and said, if you have any questions, you can ask me, and just kind of reach out to me. And then so I'm sure we'll be in touch within the coming weeks. And so it's cool to have another Gamecock up there with the big club.
Yeah. Talking to Clark Schmidt, USC right-hander, technically still a Gamecock right-hander till he signs on the dotted line.
That's exactly right.
That's right. You said, who knows? You might hold out for more money and come back. Right. Exactly. So where are you in your rehab at this point in time, and what are the doctors telling you about the progress?
Well, I just got my brace off about 2 weeks ago, and then I started rehab about a week and a half ago. So all the rehab I'm allowed to do right now is really just some exercises, soft tissue work, and the main goal right now is just to get that mobility back. And I've already gained. I mean, the progressions are actually coming in pretty good so far. I've made a lot of gains with my mobility quickly, so that's a very reassuring thing. And so that's going good. And the pain I don't really have any pain anymore, and so everything's going good smoothly so far. So hopefully that will continue.
So you and Will Crow and Tyler Johnson all go within the first 147 picks, all within the first 5 rounds. How do you feel about the success of you three now moving on professionally? And also, how much of this do you attribute to the work you had the last 3 years with Jerry Myers?
Well, it's awesome to be with these 3 guys, and obviously they're great kids, and they worked hard to get to where they are at today, to get to this position. To be mentioned with these 3 is special, and we've been through the process together. I mean, Tyler and I were roommates freshman year, and we've been through the ranks with each other going throughout freshman to junior year, and especially with Crow. Crow and I were real close, and so it's real cool. I mean, I'm so happy for both of them. I mean, I'm sure I got to talk to them a little bit, and I know they're extremely happy to be selected, and so it's gonna be a good future. And obviously, I have to attribute a lot of that to Coach Myers and everything he's done with me especially. I mean, I can speak for myself. I mean, he's done some really wonderful things with me, and he's like kind of like a second dad to me, and he kind of took me in with open arms as soon as I stepped on campus. And he helped me out in so many ways, on and off the field, and for him to be able to do that and help me become the player I am today, it's special. So I just got to give thank you to him.
All right, and very quickly, I know you've only had brief conversations, but do they see you as a starter? They see you as somebody down the road in a starting role?
Yes, sir. That's the goal, is to be a starter. And one of the things the statements they released was possible number 2 or 3 starter. That's one of the quotes I read from Oppenheimer, and so that's obviously my goal, is I want to be a starter. So that's my main goal.
Well, we all wish you a lot of luck. Me being the world's #1 Yankee fan, I wish you a ton of luck, and I want to see you on the mound at Yankee Stadium getting the last out of a World Series championship victory. That's what I want to see.
Yes, sir. That's the main goal, win a World Series. And so hopefully I can make that come to fruition within the next few years.
Well, best of luck, man, and thank you once again for joining us, and good luck with the rehab, and hope to see you back on the mound real soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's Clark Schmidt, USC's own. Right now, the Yankees laying claim to him as a first-round pick. We'll be back. Six, Sam Keating, Clemson signee, right-hander, Padres, 4th round, 108. USC right-hander Tyler, 99, is coming up. And with that, not the smoothest transition in the world, we welcome Clark Schmidt from USC, first round, 16th pick By the grace of God, he's going to be a New York Yankee. Clark, well, we are back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Thanks again to Clark Schmitz for joining us here on the program. The draft continuing. They are in round 10 today, which is the last round of the day. They're coming up on the Dodgers pick at 310, and we've had no in-state activity in the 10th round that I can tell. A lot of college guys going here in the 10th round, not too many high school guys. With that in mind, let's welcome in the interim head coach, pitching coach at South Carolina, Jerry Myers, following on the heels of one of his students, Clark Schmitz. You must feel extremely proud about what's happened. I mean, pain on one side because you're losing these three top guys, but also proud that you produced three guys taken in the top 5 rounds of the draft.
Yeah, I'm very excited for those guys, but they earned everything that they've gotten here in the draft in terms of their position there, and 3 guys that were, just leadership qualities off the charts, and guys that were, just exemplary workers, and can't be more happy for all 3 of them. They're going to be very, very strong professionals, and there's a chance for all 3 of those guys to make it a long way.
What do you think the Yankees like the most in Clark?
Clark's got a lot of things to like about what he does. There's some intangibles there that you got to see him throw week in and week out to appreciate. But just the pure raw stuff that he has a clean delivery, a good arm action. He's competed for 3 years and was thrown in the fire as a freshman in some very I guess hot situations that he responded very well to, and each year he got better. So he keeps getting better at the same pace that he was in his 3 years here. Then sky's the limit for him, and he's got very, very strong work ethic, above and beyond what the things that we asked him to do. And he's a strong character kid. There's not anyone out there that's going to be more driven than he is once he gets started with his organization.
And of course, he's got to go through the arm rehab, something that Will Crow went through last year before this season, and obviously successfully recovered from his Tommy John enough to impress the Nationals to take him in the second round. It's got to be really extra special for a guy coming off arm surgery to work his way all the way back to a second-round pick like Crow was able to do.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. He's in a better spot in a lot of different ways, having gone through what he had to during that process. What goes along with that, and Will knew about 2 days into coming off of surgery that there was a long road in front of him, and he just had the right mindset from the get-go. I'm going to use this to my advantage, both from a maturity standpoint, a physical standpoint, and all the mental things that are going to have to go into making myself better than what I was before all this happened. And, he never wavered with any of that, and was meticulous about the rehab routine, and made himself even stronger in a lot of different ways. But mentally, he never had an issue being a competitor, but he just didn't take anything for granted when he came back, and made sure that there was never anything left undone in his preparation. So he's in a better spot, and first full season after being injured, he's going to be even much better than he was this year as he gets into pro ball.
Back to Clark for a moment. Jordan Montgomery has really won over everybody in New York with his performance, and his demeanor seems to fit New York City and handling that situation well. Nothing, when he was at South Carolina, he was a very calm and cool kid, and nothing seemed to rattle him. And Clark seems to be sort of that same makeup. Would you agree with that? Do you think his internal makeup is good for somebody who has to pitch in a place like Yankee Stadium?
Yeah, there's no doubt that it's helped Jordan Montgomery just with his there's a mental part of what he does in his preparation, and just the place where that he is, and he puts himself, and just the way he carries himself, and just the type of person that he is. And he understands the game and knows that it's not going to be easy, that his job is to simplify things and not react positively or negatively, no matter what the result on each pitch. He's just simplified the game in terms of I execute my pitches, and I string enough well-executed pitches together, then I'm going to give our team a chance. And that's always been the way Jordan pitched, and extremely proud of him and happy for him. And Clark's the same way. He's gotten to that point through a lot of maturity and development, during his time here. I think that he knows how to handle situations, and he's not going to be fazed by things along the way and on the trek through the minor leagues. And he's well suited in terms of makeup. That comes from his family upbringing, his mom and dad, and his brother, who's he looks up to. That is also the whole family, high character, great upbringing, and that bodes well for being prepared for pro ball after 3 years here.
Talking with USC's Jerry Myers. Tyler Johnson in the 5th round of the White Sox. Your thoughts on when he went? Is that about what you were expecting? Did you think he might go a little earlier?
I would have drafted him higher based on me knowing him day in, day out the last 3 years. But it's still a draft spot that's respectable, and who knows what they've talked about. I have talked to Tyler, but just because he goes in the 5th round doesn't mean it's 5th round money. It kind of gets a little bit some back and forth going on. Some guys sign in the 2nd or 3rd and agree at the last second to take less than whatever that slot is. Some guys get drafted a little bit later and maybe get the slot money for an earlier round. So in terms of amounts, and so that happens some, and but it's probably within the range that he was told or through advisement that they kind of gauged going in, and he seems to be excited about the pick, and like I said, I just know him, and I know moving forward, he's as good as anyone that they might have picked ahead of him as well, and I think he'll prove that if whatever he decides to do.
All right. Now, stupid question alert here, but I have to ask it. You expect all 3 to go ahead and sign?
I think they will. I don't know about Tyler right now at this point, just being, less than, the type of financial commitment that the Crows and the Schmitz are going to see, but, so you never know, but, they're always welcome back. We've had some guys, come back in the past, and, we're not going to, take a spot away from them if they decide not to sign. But you've seen some guys out of high school and college that sometimes decide to return first round. But I'll let them speak to that.
Sure. Now, the only signee of yours that I have seen pick so far was the catcher from Augusta, who went 2nd round to the Padres. I could have missed somebody. Have you guys had any other signees drafted?
There's a few more picks here in the 10th round. I heard you say as well before I came on the air. So up to that point, it was just Luis Camposano who went in that pick that you just mentioned, and up until we started talking here, that was it.
Okay. You would expect he's going to sign 2nd round pick?
I think that was probably in the works if he went in that area. So at this point, that would be the expectation. But we haven't had any conversation with them yet, and there's got to be some talking going on both sides with the club and their family. But indications are most of the time that's what happens.
All right, Coach, if we can ask you to hang on for a moment, got to hit a quick break. Can we come back to you for a couple more minutes?
Okay, sure.
Thank you. Jerry Myers, USC interim head coach, pitching coach with us. They have completed round number 10 Okay, we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornblut, Kevin McCrary, Professor Tom Hayes, joined again by USC interim coach Jerry Myers and pitching coach as well. By the way, the 10th round is over. No one from our state taken. You know, Jerry, just looking over these last few rounds, heavy with college picks, not so many high school picks. And I know one thing you guys use in recruiting is, hey, man, come to college, put in your good 3 years or 2 years, and you'll stand a chance of getting drafted.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's a structure to it now with the new CBA agreement, a couple of years with how they do things, and the complexion of the ratio, I guess, of high school and college guys changes after the 10th round, and as they get into the teens. So there's certain organizations have different structures how they do things, but it's a lot of college guys here going in the late in the second day up to the 10th round.
Okay, what has it been like for you since the word came down last week that Chad Holbrook would not be back as the head coach, and Coach Tanner made you the interim head coach? What's it been like for you trying to not only hold things together there, but think about your future?
Yeah, it's both of those things, and nonstop, 24 hours a day. Really trying to separate the two and do what's asked of me as I fill in here interim, and try to do the best that I can with the returning players and those entering the draft that are our signees coming in, and just keep constant communication with them, and make sure that we do the best we can to set them at ease, that that they're going to be in good hands and taken care of, and just be there to talk to them as needed here this last week or so. And for the most part, just trying to keep things in order as questions pop up, both from parents and prospects, and so forth as this process goes on.
How did you feel when Coach Tanner said that he was not going to consider anybody on the staff for the head coaching job permanently?
That wasn't a shock to me, or I couldn't say disappointment. It was expected, I guess, on my part, that coming off a season where if we had gone to Omaha, or we'd been on a roll and I'd been a part of the staff at that point in time, then I think the circumstances could be different. But that wasn't. I didn't take that I didn't take that personally, and I didn't take that as any negativity towards me. It's usually, the norm, I guess, as far as the situation coming off a season where we didn't make the postseason, and that's again, I wasn't shocked. Wasn't something that wasn't expected.
Is it your hope to stay on at South Carolina when the new head coach is announced, or do you feel the need to pull up roots and go elsewhere regardless?
Yeah, it's a two-part answer to that. Just the nature of the business. I mean, you see football coaches, assistant coaches, bouncing around all the time just because there's so much turnover in staffs. And myself coaching in Division I baseball for 28 years, the moves that I made have been on my own accord, and usually moving to a better situation. So this is new for me. Obviously, there's my resume is okay, and there's some people that I've made relationships along the way, and there's a lot of coaching movement again this summer. So there's strong contemplation on each of those positions that open up. Is that going to be the right thing for not just me, but as important, if not more important, my family? And so with that, I've been here also 15 years in total, with 6 years going as a head coach before I came back. So it's a place that I have a strong affection for and strong commitment to, but it's not really part of the way that I think the process is going to go. Where would I love to stay? Of course I would. You know, I came back because I wanted to be here, and I didn't have any plans of wanting to leave. But you know, it's the nature of the business, and so I'm in on a couple things, and we'll just see how it pans out.
Okay. Has Coach Tanner given you guys any indication about when he wants to fill this job? How quickly he wants to move?
No, he hasn't. He hasn't given us any information, and I doubt that he's going to put any kind of time frame on anything that in that regard. But you know, he's going to do. You know, I think you know him, and I think a lot of people know how he operates. He's going to be very thorough. So if that degree of being thorough is on the short term, and he's comfortable, then I'm sure you'll hear something sooner rather than later, like you stated. But you know, I don't think there's a time frame. You know, everybody understands the urgency on it, and it is time sensitive in a lot of ways. But you know, it's got to be the right time frame, and however long that takes. But we've got no indication at this point.
Would you be willing to entertain an offer from the new head coach if he called you and said, Jerry, we want you to stay? Would that be something that, if you haven't already taken a job, something you would entertain?
Well, I definitely would entertain that for sure. It was, it's not something that I'm foreseeing, and it's not something, you know, that's part of the plan or anything like that. But, you know, it's at the same time, you know, like I said, I know I can do my job, and I know, you know, if we have to uproot the family, like you said, and make a move, and this situation elsewhere is in need of my services, then I'm going to be obviously open to that, and I guess pursuing that in the meantime as this transition goes on.
Well, we thank you for joining us tonight, for talking about the draft and talking about what's happening there at USC. We do wish you the best of luck with whatever happens to you in the future. You've always been great about coming on and talking baseball with us, and we really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Jerry Myers, USC interim head coach. Interesting there from him that, guys, he's not expecting to be around when the new man is put in place. And I know the new guy wants to bring his own people with him. But my gosh, you know, Jerry Myers' record speaks for itself. I think he's very confident that he can get a great job somewhere else at a high-level situation, but his record speaks for itself, and he just sent 3 to the first 5 rounds of the draft.
Yep, and I wouldn't imagine that he kind of alluded to the fact that he's already had some inquiries, some initial rumblings, and you know that Chad Holbrook is also fielding calls right now, and Ray Tanner said during his press conference last week that he would expect something to happen very quickly for Chad Holbrook if that's the path that he wants to go down. Some coaches like to sit out for a year. We'll see. I noticed, you know, that his name's already popped up some places. So it is kind of surreal, though, because it really is the end of an era now. The Ray Tanner era as a coach, and his fingerprints on that program in a few weeks are going to be completely gone outside of the fact that he made the hire as the AD. So he will have his fingerprints on there forever in that regard. But kind of that Camelot era of Gamecock baseball when they went on that unbelievable run, won those back-to-back championships and played for a third. Any sign of that is going to be gone.
And, of course, we can say that at least some form of Gamecock fans, as we said when it was going on, Corn, at the time, there's some Gamecock fans getting spoiled right now, and enjoy it while it's here because it usually doesn't last very long, but it could return at some later date.
Taking a look at our poll question, who must Tanner hire as USC's new baseball coach regardless of the cost? 28% are saying Kevin O'Sullivan. 14% are saying Monty Lee. 12% are saying other. We'll check out the others when we come back. We've got recruiting and a whole bunch more in this next hour. Don't go away.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Okay, we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Good to have you with us. Phil Kornbluth here, Kevin McCrary, the Professor Tom Hayes. If you'd like to join in to comment on anything that we have discussed tonight, you've heard from Clark Schmidt, you've heard from Jerry Myers, a couple of interesting people to hear from. The number is 800-956-7266. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com and on Twitter @SportsTalkSC. Recruiting is coming up in just a moment, but I want to give the guys back in Columbia a chance to comment on what Jerry had to say. Thoughts about this search moving forward here as we are about to hit the 1 week mark of this thing. And it's still early from that standpoint. There's no definite rush here, but I'm going to stick with my theory. And, you know, if he hires the guy from Wake Forest or he hires the guy from Michigan, that's fine. To me, based on their histories, their resumes and everything, to me, that's just changing a coach for the sake of changing a coach. I don't see a huge upgrade from Chad Holbrook by going in that particular direction. Not saying that's where he's going. I'm saying if he does, I don't see a huge upgrade there.
Yeah, I mean, short of a major home run hire, an established name, which is going to be very difficult, you're going to be replacing one guy for another, one guy that people didn't think was proven, fair or not, with somebody else. Okay, you come in with the guy from Wake Forest, had a hell of a season, and brought Wake Forest to a level they haven't been in a long time, but doing it consistently. The guy at Michigan, he hasn't won a ton of games there. You say, oh, it's at Michigan, so he's going to have all these resources, but it's just a different animal at South Carolina, at Clemson, and it has to be somebody that understands that animal, if you ask me. And I think that Ray Tanner has a big Rolodex of names. I don't know that it means anything if he doesn't make a hire this week. I don't know that that means that he's got a guy in the College World Series that he wants to hire. I think he's going to be deliberate about it. That's kind of his MO, but it is strange. Again, still just processing the Jerry Myers interview that, you know, Myers is going to be gone. Esposito is going to be gone. Holbrook will be gone. And that'll be that in terms of, you know, that program's run in 2010, 2011, 2012.
Well, you know, the one thing, Corn, that scares me of some fans, and it's not all, but in this society when you can microwave stuff, you got so many choices on the tube, you push one button, fantasy football, fantasy baseball. Their idea is the best thing to do is just change the channel. And sometimes you don't give the person who's in the middle of it a chance to correct what they've done. Suppose Clemson had sat there and said, look, you know, we've given Dabo a chance, but, you know, he's had some good teams. He's lost to South Carolina 5 straight times. It's time for us to change something and get somebody in here. You know, what would have happened if they had done that? And if you get an established coach, that doesn't mean much. Interestingly enough, of course, Tennessee reached all the way across to the West Coast, grabbed a named coach, and what happened there? So, you know, nothing is guaranteed. That's why, you know, if you've made 2 regionals, 1 super regional, and what are we talking about? 4 years? I mean, come on. I mean, the guy knows what he's doing. Now, you know, I would say Chad would have to deal with kind of relaxing and just refraining from complaining about the fans, because that's when they really get ornery, when you tell them about themselves, even if it's true. They get ornery on you and they turn against you.
Well, they didn't like you know, some of the national college baseball writers did point that out, and some Gamecock fans have kind of said in jest, oh, it's all our fault that the program missed the postseason 2 out of 3 years. No,
you're a contributor though.
It's not, but it definitely turned toxic, and it didn't have to turn toxic that fast. And there are great programs out there. I mean, South Carolina fans have to understand that whoever the next coach is, he could miss the postseason 2 out of 3 years at a certain point in time. So maybe it'll happen in the first 5, and they'll say, "Oh, it's Chad Holbrook's fault." But there are a lot of great programs out there that are missing the postseason now, or great programs that get bounced in a regional at home or a super regional. It's not South Carolina baseball's birthright to go to Omaha every year. And I'm not trying to lower the bar. That's what people say. Oh, you're trying to lower the bar. I'm not. You have to be realistic. I mean, if your bar's too high, it's okay to expect the postseason every year. That is a legitimate expectation for a South Carolina baseball fan or a Clemson baseball fan, and to perform well. You know, you want to be a factor every year in college baseball. That is a realistic expectation. And when that doesn't happen, you have every reason to be upset and go, that wasn't the kind of season that we want. But just because you don't have the kind of season that you want doesn't necessarily mean that is grounds to fire the coach and it's all his fault and he made that happen, because it's pretty well documented what happened in this particular last season that caused the Gamecocks to miss the postseason. And it's certainly not on all Chad Holbrook's shoulders. So we don't have to relitigate that now, but I do think they need to check some of that with whoever the next guy is and understand that it's going to be a little more difficult. And I think Clemson fans have recalibrated since they went a little cuckoo over Jack Leggett. The same thing happened up there. I mean, Jack Leggett got trounced by Clemson fans, a Hall of Fame coach that went to Omaha 6 times.
And you know what? Much like Chad, he spoke out against some fans at one point in time late and turned some people off as a result of it. But, you know, in the case of Chad and what he said about a group of fans, he wasn't talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, he wasn't talking about Gamecock fans in general. He was upset that some fans were giving Jonah Bride at home a hard time. And he called him out. I mean, he was taking up for his player. And I can understand that. And I think people should appreciate that more instead of condemn him for doing that.
Well, he also said that, you know, he had a recruit in there and you going against the home guy. I mean, does he want to come here?
Well, they ran into that, and this was before this season. I mean, last year the Gamecocks made a super regional. And they won the SEC East, and they were having these problems last year. That's why it kind of rings hollow for fans after the fact now to go, oh, you see, we were right. You know, they missed a postseason. They were doing this after the Tennessee series. I mean, I've been going back and forth with South Carolina baseball fans on Twitter for the better part since of 2 years now, two full baseball seasons, and they haven't all been bad. And at Tennessee, they were 3-0 after that series, and the argument was, oh, he's just stumbling into wins. So they had cast a die on Chad Holbrook long before this season started. And when it went sideways on him because of, again, various things that you don't put all on the head coach, but it had become toxic. And I don't necessarily think that it was a wrong move given how toxic it was for both sides. What I was told from somebody close to Holbrook is he is actually, his words, to go to a place where he can take his family to the ballpark again, because he didn't feel like that was really something that was a conducive thing at South Carolina, and it's a shame that it had gotten to that point for all parties.
And you know what? And you brought up the same thing that happened with Calvi as well. I mean, that's ridiculous. The coaches should not feel threatened inside their own ballpark, and their families should certainly feel comfortable inside the friendly confines of their own ballpark. I mean, you don't win every baseball game. And so you can't fire a coach in baseball every time they lose a game. And you can't fire a baseball coach every time they don't make it to the postseason. And again, for some reason at South Carolina, they have this feeling that you don't make it 2 out of 3 years. That's a complete and total collapse of the program, when it's far from that. They were probably one victory away from making it into a regional this year. And unfortunately for them, they fell short in getting that one extra victory to get them in. And the end result is what you've got now. We'll be back in just a moment.
I assume you have not got a chance to see them yet, or if you have, what was it like?
Well, for the most
Look, and summarize your observation.
I was very pleased with
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network's been a busy, busy night with the draft and everything going on with that. And we'll have recruiting coming up for you in the next half hour. Had to push it back, so much going on. I will tell you that the basketball player, the grad transfer from Lehigh that USC had been working with, Brandon Austin, announced for Georgia Tech today. He's going to continue his career. He'll have 2 more years to play. He'll do so at Georgia Tech. Let's talk some football. Let's talk about a team that should be not only an ACC championship contender, but a playoff contender as well. The Louisville Cardinals, led by their great quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner Lamar Jackson. And to tell us more, we welcome to Sports Talk Steve Jones, who's with the Louisville Courier-Journal. Read his stuff all the time, and it is excellent. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure, man. Thanks for joining us. And I know you're tied up with baseball right now. How crazy is the city over the Cardinals baseball team?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, as they played Kentucky in the Super Regionals. I mean, I'm sure you guys would know what that'd be like if it was Clemson playing South Carolina or something like that. It was nuts. You know, they had 6,000 plus. They broke attendance records, you know, every day for the 2 games, and they, you know, obviously they have maybe the greatest, you know, at least modern, I would say, I don't know, most accomplished college baseball player of all time with Brendan McKay, who went number 4 last night. he's a beast. As obviously is such a great pitcher with great left-handed control and command and a great curveball, and then is maybe arguably the best hitter in the country as well too. So they had, I want to say they had 7 guys picked in the first 110 draft picks last year, and then they came back and were even better and made it back to Omaha this year. So, I mean, they're in the mix for surely at this point the most consistent program in the country.
Yeah, no question about that. And the athletic program at Louisville riding high right now. Of course, basketball has always been great. And the football now also a national contender. Is this the year that they're pointing to? They think this is the team that's coming back with the quarterback and much of that defense, a lot of that offense. Is this the year they think they break through and get to the playoffs?
It could be. I think that, there is a lot of, I would say maybe not, definitely the hopes are high with Lamar Jackson coming back. I think people do have a little bit of skepticism because of the way they finished the season last year and because their offensive line was so bad and they gave up so many sacks, after having that amazing run. And I think they were number 5 or something going into the playoff rankings before they played at Houston the second to last week of the year. And they lost, were blown out on a Thursday night. Then they lost at home to Kentucky, a game that I think they were favored by 4 touchdowns. And then they got blown out again by LSU in the bowl game. So, that definitely, I think, tempered a little bit of people's expectations for what this team could be. If they had somehow made the Orange Bowl and won the Orange Bowl, then I think, hype would have been, going nuts. But at this point, I still think that everybody views them as a team that is a very good chance to have double-digit wins, definitely capable of knocking off either Clemson or Florida State or maybe both, and maybe having a little bit lighter schedule with not having Houston on a Thursday night road game at Houston was a tricky game for them from the start, and it ended up costing them. And they don't really have a tricky game like that on the schedule this year. So I would say that definitely the hopes are for a 10-win season, and always at this point, which I think people down there know that everything goes by how well you compete against Clemson and Florida State in the Atlantic.
Yep, and you get Clemson at home early after they go to North Carolina. They open up against Purdue in Indianapolis, and then they go to Chapel Hill. Now, that's not going to be an easy road game going to North Carolina on the 9th before they play Clemson. So it's a little bit of a tricky start for them those first 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, if for some reason they can be 3-0, then, I would say they'll be in the top 5 or 6, at that point. It would be a fantastic start for them. I'm not an expert on North Carolina, but I mean, you would think that they lost a lot with Trubisky. I think they lost Schweitzer, and maybe a running back as well too. So I would think they're expected to maybe take a step back. Of course, obviously they always recruit really well, so that'd be a hard game on the road. It'll be the first time, I guess, that Louisville has played them since they've joined the ACC. And Purdue, I think most people view Louisville as a pretty significant favorite in that game. But it's the first game back for Jeff Brom now, who's the former great quarterback at Louisville and close to the guys in the program, and former assistant for Bobby Petrino at Western Kentucky. So now he'll be taking over there, and I think everybody thinks that program's on the rise if they have him, because he's such a bright offensive mind. So. Yeah, I mean, I think they got to come ready to play, but it would be hard to imagine the season opening game they not, come ready to play against a team they've been preparing for all year.
Sure. Are they going to ask Jackson to carry as much of the offense as he did last year, over 5,000 total yards? Do they want to put that much on his back again this year, or is that just part of what they do and he takes that responsibility?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see exactly how much he runs and if they change exactly, whether he, is more during spring practice anyway. They made a big deal out of having him work more from pro style sets under the center and having it's more what you think of Petrino the first time around, or Petrino at Arkansas, the kind of offenses he would run there of a very pro style kind of set with a drop back quarterback who hands off to a big running back and they, have a power running game. Whereas since Lamar has been there, they have switched to, zone read and almost strictly out of the shotgun and the pistol and all that kind of stuff like that. And he runs a ton. So, I think they felt like it was a lot that got put on him. And, he was having to make all of these, zone reads on every single snap. And then he also had to make all of his passing reads. And then he was the guy who was running the majority of the yards too. So it was a huge load to put on him, even though he never got hurt. I think they thought it was mentally taxing on him, and probably maybe contributed a little bit to all the sacks and stuff that he had, and some turnovers that they had at the end of the year. So I think ideally they would have more of a traditional kind of pro style running game this year if they can. But I mean, honestly, why would you not just let Lamar run out of the shotgun all the time? With the way we saw them do last year, because
sure,
he was unstoppable.
Well, what about the defense? Because you lose your coordinator, and I think Malden is gone, the defensive lineman, a couple of your great defensive backs. Do they have enough in the till to refill those coffers defensively?
Yeah, so they had a really unique situation where, as you said, the coordinator left. He went to Mississippi State, and then they hired Mississippi State's coordinator. Those guys just straight swapped jobs. Peter Sermon is the new guy. He's brought in, I mean, it seems pretty similar to what Ty Grantham was running, which is sort of like a 3-4 with kind of a rover that plays one of the outside linebackers. So I guess you could call it like a 3-3-5 maybe. The calls are supposed to be a little more simplified, because I think that got him. They thought that got him at the end of the year, was that maybe the scheme was a little too complex. Grantham had a lot of NFL kind of calls and experience, and that maybe they got bit on a couple of plays where guys weren't, in the right position, even if it was at the end of the season. So I think they're trying to simplify it down. They have a lot of talent coming back. They lost 4 guys. Only one of them was drafted, but they were all really quality players, sort of fringe all-ACC kind of guys. But they bring back, notably, Jair Alexander. May remember that he had an interception against Clemson. He's an All-America candidate at cornerback, and is, been projected as a possible first-rounder next year. And then they have a lot of seniors, maybe 7 or 8 seniors also starting. So it'll be an experienced defense.
Hey, Steve, thank you so much, man. Enjoy Omaha and covering that baseball, and then you'll have football right on top of you. And we look forward to those games coming up with the Cardinals, the Tigers, and others. Back in a moment.
You are watching.
All right, let's shift gears and hopefully do a better job shifting gears than Junior did on Sunday at Pocono. And, yeah, it's just the weirdest thing you got. And KT, Kerry Tharp, president of Darlington, joins us. You got the greatest drivers in the world, and, you know, you blow up an engine because you can't shift from second to third. And that's what Junior was saying afterwards. He wasn't the only one having that problem. What is it about the shifting at Pocono with that transmission they have set up that causes problems?
Well, I tell you, Phil, I've seen it happen a lot. You know, it's such long straightaways and you know, such long parts of the racetrack there that you have to be going. And if you miss a gear, you're done. And we found that out with Dale Jr. and several others. And you know, you kind of scratch your head and wonder why. But, you know, you go to a racetrack like that, which is it's the most probably one of the more unusual racetracks that we go to because it's basically a flat 2.5 mile racetrack. There's really very little banking. There's only 3 turns there, and so you know if you miss the shift, you know that transmission is going to give out, and of course that's back to the 88 car. And it was a tough day for him. And but you know, that's kind of one of the traits of Pocono. You better know what you're doing when you go down the straightaway and you're shifting gears. If not, it'll be a short day for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was a great race. I mean, thoroughly enjoyed it, especially the end, the way that you had Blaney with the lead. He had taken the lead, and he was doing his best. He was pedaling as hard as he could, as they would say, to keep the lead. Harvick was closing in, and it goes back to that shifting. Listening to the guys in talk about it, they were saying, you know, listen how Harvick is shifting gears coming out of this turn, trying to pick up whatever speed he could to try to catch Blaney.
Exactly, and you know, you look at Ryan Blaney, and I mean, he held off 2 former champions, Kyle Busch and then Kevin Harvick, and that's no easy task for a young driver, 23 years old like Ryan Blaney, going for his first win. But you know, he drove the race of his life, and you know, I'm not saying he had the best car out there, but sometimes in a race at NASCAR, not you know, the best car doesn't win, and so he took full advantage of that last pit stop. Had a great pit stop there. They went in, they got tires. Kyle Busch decided to stay out. And so, you know, he made his way up through the field there on the last restart. And, you know, he did not miss a mark on his last, I'd say, 5-6 laps. And I was watching it. I kept thinking, you know, Harvick's going to get him. Harvick's going to get him. But Ryan Blaney held him off and really, I think, just showed the kind of driver that he is and pulled out the win.
Yeah, in NASCAR circles, to see the 21 back in victory lane, the Wood brothers, what does that mean around the sport?
Well, it's huge, Phil, and you know the history of the sport as well as anybody, and you know the history of the 21. The 21 is one of those iconic numbers in NASCAR. You mean you have the 3, you have the 43, and you have the 21. And I'd have to dare say that those are the 3 most famous numbers in the history of the sport. The 21 car with the Wood brothers has won 99 times in the Cup Series, and with several Hall of Fame drivers, Steve Yarborough, David Pearson, both South Carolina natives. And so for them to get a victory lane like that, for Ryan Blaney, who's an up-and-coming driver, he's just, you know, he's a guy that people can relate to. He's a throwback type driver. It means the world of the sport, and I think this has been a big week for the sport. You know, not only is he the 3rd first-time winner this year, he also becomes the 10th different winner on the season, and for him to get a win like that, punch his ticket into the playoffs, I think it's very exciting.
Now, KT, the Clemson Tiger Chevrolet driven by Cody Ware finished dead last. Did you have something to do with that?
Absolutely not, Phil. And you know, we're looking forward to having them at Darlington.
Yeah.
You know, it's a good-looking paint scheme. I think it's a terrific idea by Ware Racing to commemorate the national champions, Clemson Tigers. You know, they were at the White House, I believe, either yesterday or the day before. And, you know, that's cool that they're running at Darlington. And so, you know, it was one of those things. They just didn't have a very good day, but it's a great paint scheme. We look forward to having them there, and hopefully their day is a little bit better than it was at Pocono.
Yeah, they parked it after 35 laps because of a vibration. When you're a team like that, low funded, when you start to feel the slightest little thing go wrong, do they tell you get off the track, save the car, don't blow the engine because of the expense involved?
Well, there are a lot of expenses involved. I mean, we're talking about tires. We're talking about trying to fix a race car. We're talking about parts and pieces that cost hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars. And so, I'm sure that they were out there for the right reasons. And I'm sure that when they felt like that there was something askew with the race car, they didn't want to, risk the chance and maybe put it in the wall or something. And for a team like those guys to lose a race car it's tough. And so, I'm sure they made the best decision for their organization. But they'll be back at it this weekend. And like I said, they'll have that Clemson Tiger car at Darlington in September.
Now, as you mentioned, 10 different winners already this year. I mean, are we looking at a year where you could have your 16 different race winners into the playoffs?
I sure hope so, Phil, because I think it adds the excitement and the intrigue and the drama of the sport. That's probably one of the reasons that they instituted this format several years ago, was to put that premium on winning. And, there's a lot of really good drivers out there that haven't won yet. And so, you take a look at Kevin Harvick. He hasn't won. Nobody at Joe Gibbs Racing has won. Dale Jr. hasn't won. So that's 5-6 drivers right there. And so all of a sudden, we got a couple of road courses coming up, and that sometimes is a wild card. We have the Daytona race in 2 weeks. Sometimes is a wild card. So I think it would be outstanding if we would go into Richmond with 16, 17 winners, and you talk about some drama and intrigue, that we would have that times two.
Well, I mean, that Kevin Harvick's going to win a race, all right? So that would give you 11. He's going to win one. Kyle Busch is going to win a race. That would give you 12. Chase Elliott's a good possibility. That would give you 13. Right. I'm just looking at some of these top guys. Denny Hamlin's bound to win one. That'd be 14. Right. I could see where you're going to get possibly 16 different guys.
Well, you could, and we go to Sonoma in a couple weeks. We go to Watkins Glen, I think, the 1st of August, and I've seen, some, AJ Allmendinger won at Watkins Glen a few years ago. I mean, Sonoma can lend itself to some first-time winners, and certainly the restrictor plate race at Daytona in 2 or 3 weeks can lend itself to, who's at the right place at the right time. And I'll tell you, this weekend at Michigan. Michigan is an interesting racetrack because I've seen some fuel mileage races there before where maybe the team with the best car or the best driver ran out of gas on the last couple of laps, and all of a sudden you've got a guy coming from mid-pack and wins a race. And so I wouldn't be surprised if something crazy like that happens as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. What's happening over at your place this week, next week, and the future weeks?
Well, we have a Stewart Haas Racing tomorrow with their Xfinity Series. 00 car of Cole Custer is going to make an unveil for his paint scheme in the Xfinity race here at Darlington, so we're excited about that. Cole Custer is certainly one of the up-and-coming drivers in that series. And, we've got a 4th of July festival on July the 1st at our racetrack. But right now, Phil, we're all systems go for our Labor Day weekend. We're 82, 83 days away from our race, so everything, every moment we have, we're focusing on our race weekend.
All right. I just hope tomorrow is not Custer's last stand.
There you go, Phil. You haven't lost your sense of humor. I like that about you. And as I told you, I think maybe told you this last week, it's really not 83 days to the event. It's 83 days before I get to see your shining face.
You got it, my man. Thank you, KT.
Okay, Phil. Thank you all.
Bye-bye. I like that. K-Mac, I didn't hear you laughing. Custer's last stand. I thought that was pretty clever.
I laughed. I chuckled.
On short notice. All right, recruiting coming up in a moment.
I said the king's in the building. Tell me how you feeling. Yeah, I said the king's in the building.
Oh, yeah. Let me hear it one more time. Will you, John Mark? Jack it up for me one more time, right now.
The King's on the beach right now.
All right. That's my walk-up music. Yes, indeed. I like it, John Mark. Good thinking ahead of me there. Let's give you the recruiting report for tonight. I know that you're starving for it, as I'm starving for something to eat. We feed you recruiting. Defensive lineman Rick Sandage of Concord, North Carolina, coming off an appearance at the Rivals event last weekend in Indy, said he's in regular contact with USC coach Will Muschamp, who's telling him they really want him and they have to get him back down there again. He said that they are on him hard, to be honest. He has a top list: USC, North Carolina, Ohio State, NC State, LSU, Virginia Tech, Michigan, Florida State, Florida, Georgia, and Miami. This weekend he's going to Ohio State and Michigan. Then he's heading to the opening in Oregon for the end of the month. He said he does not have any plans on getting back to USC this summer. He will take officials in the fall and said LSU and Louisville will be two of those. He does not know if he'll take one to USC. Offensive lineman Javon Gwynn of Charlotte was among the linemen camp at USC last weekend. Gamecocks were an early offer for him, one of the first Power 5 teams to offer him. That's kept them high up on his list. He remains open on his decision. And as we head to the heat of the summer, he has a good feel for his top schools moving forward. USC, he said they really like him. They're contacting him, letting him know that. He talks mostly with Wolford, and they like him, and he likes Wolford, likes the history of Wolford from coaching with the 49ers. He said USC, NC State, Duke, and Wake Forest are the schools at the top of his list in no order. He said NC State is the one that's recruiting him the hardest at this point. He's going to the opening at the end of the month, and he was hoping to commit somewhere before then, but he's not sure he can make a decision by the end of the month. Boy, I tell you what, had a couple of scary news notes from last night. Clemson commitment defensive end Xavier Thomas of Florence, who's at IMG Academy, avoided serious injury in a single car accident in West Virginia. He tweeted that he swerved to miss a deer, hit a ditch, flipped his car, and hit a tree. He was not wearing a seatbelt, but he walked away with just bruises and scratches, he tweeted. He said he was a half mile from his hotel. That's why he didn't have his belt on. He vowed to always wear his belt in the future. Then Clemson commitment defensive lineman Josh Belk of Louisville tweeted with pictures that he was in an accident in his truck last night. He walked away with a busted lip and a few scratches on his hand. Defensive back Jonathan Gibson, Houston, Georgia, will be at Clemson for a camp this week. He has a USC offer. Quarterback to Kerryon Joyner, Fort Dorchester. His commitment announcement is Sunday, 4:30 at the school auditorium. Of course, he's already made his decision between USC and NC State. Offensive lineman Wyatt Campbell of Lugoff Elgin plans to make his decision this week. He's at Clemson tomorrow. He was at Virginia Tech and USC last week. He was offered by Colorado State Monday. USC Clemson in the final 10 with offensive lineman Jesus Gibbs of Dumfries, Virginia. Some of the others are Virginia, Virginia Tech, Boston College, Maryland, and Rutgers. Dutch Fork wide receiver Austin Connor plans to walk on at USC this season. He's a track guy who had some early major offers, but he did not move on any of them, and apparently they haven't moved strongly on him either. And so he'll walk on at USC. Defensive lineman Dantrell Barkley, Independence Junior College, Kansas, plans his decision next week before he visits NC State on the 24th. He recently visited USC, and he said he will visit NC State after he makes his decision, even if his decision is USC or somebody else. And 6'5" Lehigh basketball grad transfer Brandon Austin announced his plans today to enroll at Georgia Tech. He visited USC last weekend. There you go, recruiting. Check it out on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and on Twitter. Use the hashtag STRecruiting. The Panthers back at work today, right, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Little OT, what's it called? OTA action?
No,
Yeah.
not
Mini
OTAs,
camp.
just
Mini
mini
camp.
Mini
Oh,
camp.
it's
You
a
got to
mini
go to
camp,
these
mini
ones.
camp.
That's mandatory.
Little
Okay,
mini
so
camp.
Mini camp. K-Mac, we got some Ron Rivera.
Little Ron Rivera, Riverboat Ron, updating how things are going. Ben Boulware went from the White House to mini camp.
I was very pleased with it. You know, today's the next 3 practices or next 2 practices, including this one as well, is really a culmination of what we've done through the OTAs. And the mini camp's a chance for us to really go back, start from square one and see how many of our young guys have really retained the things that we've needed to teach them. And I thought, again, it was very good. I was really pleased with the things that our young guys did out there. You know, for the vets, it was old hat, and it's exactly what I saw. Those guys competed, did a great job for us. But again, the nice thing is watching these young guys do the things that they need to do.
Ron, I understand it's Dave's deal. I also understand you don't talk on concussion protocol, but on a personal level, have you spoken with Michael? Do you know kind of where he's at?
No, I haven't had an opportunity yet, but again, you know, it's something that, you know, we're taking care of.
Any sort of encouragement on your part that he's in town?
He's in town.
Okay, a little bit of Ron Rivera from the first mini camp today. Wanted to mention this. John Whittle, Big Spur, had a story about USC's budget coming up for the athletic year. Ray Tanner telling the Board of Trustees on Friday that South Carolina has expected revenues for the upcoming fiscal year of $121,852,857. And he expects to spend $102,900,953 and transfer $18,254,306 back to the university. First of all, I'd love to be able to have the opportunity to spend that kind of money. That's not mine.
Yeah.
An increase of $2 million in revenues expected this year solely from the NC State game. And an additional $4.9 million comes with the new media rights deal with IMG. The projected revenues for the last fiscal year, $116,698,964. So South Carolina expects to bring in more than $5 million in additional revenue. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing, right, guys?
What was the payout of the SEC, or they haven't gotten there yet?
Oh, I'm sure that's factored in. Let's see if I see that anywhere in the story. The bulk of the department's money comes from the SEC and the NCAA, which are projected to provide South Carolina just over $40 million in the next fiscal year. Tanner expects $22 million in ticket sales, $13.5 million in Gamecock Club dues, $10.7 million in gifts and donations, as well as nearly $18 million in sponsorship, media rights, and royalties. And there's more data here that John goes into. So, hey, look, if they need to spend $2 million to get Kevin O'Sullivan in here after the World Series, they should have the money to do it.
$2 million. Okay.
Plus $2 million when you're going to spend. How much is he going to spend? He's got expects to spend $102,900,000. So what's another $2 million to that total to spend?
I thought he was going to build a Victory Tower.
Yeah. Still waiting on that.
Still waiting on the Victory Tower.
Still waiting on that. All right, quick trivia question for K-Mac, movie trivia question. In the movie The American Sniper, you see it?
No, I did not see that. Nope.
Okay, it's not going to do any good now.
Okay. Yeah, I did not see that with I know Clint Eastwood directed that. I did not see it though.
Hey, let me mention this basketball.
Well, you're not going to say the question now?
No. Well, I've already answered it.
Oh, okay.
I already answered it last night. Yeah, I wanted to catch you on it.
No.
Clemson's hiring from Rhode Island assistant coach Antonio Reynolds Dean to join Brad Brownell for this coming season. He once coached at the College of Charleston a couple of years ago. Okay, that will do it. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, guys. Great job. Appreciate everybody being with us. Have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow night right here on Sports Talk.